Have you ever worked in a team that didn't feel like a team? Where it didn't feel like people were collaborating or pulling together or knew each other? What did you do about it? What did your team leader do about it? Peter's going to share a story about how he tackled it with a team that was just like that and got amazing results. So, Peter, tell us your story. Where was the team?
I mean, it is a very interesting story, and it's the story of the first meeting I had as a consultant with the team. And these are pretty valuable moments, the beginning with a team. They're where you learn a huge amount, and also where the team has a look at you and thinks, can you be helpful to us or not?
And were you invited in because they didn't think they were working as a team? What was the request? How did you end up there?
Well, I had been working with you in BG Group, who turned out to be a phenomenally fast-growing oil and gas company. And I had an invitation to go over to Trinidad and introduce dialogue to an operational team. That's unusual. People don't often link operations and dialogue, but had a good manager there, Andy Samuel, invited me for just that purpose. While I was there, I met the CEO, and the CEO, Garrett, running a large business in Trinidad. Oil and liquid natural gas were the big items, expanding rapidly. He liked me, we had a good meeting, and said, why not come along and meet my team? I'm sure you could help us. So it was quite a loose beginning brief. He didn't say, my team's a disaster. He didn't say, we can't operate. No, he had a good business making good money, but equally, it was clear that there were some things that weren't in place. So I said to him, fine, tell me a bit more. And I sat with him for half an hour or three-quarters of an hour. And then I wandered around their building and introduced myself to each of the team members. But I did so informally. I wanted to get a sense of nationality, culture, experience, how professional they were, but just engaged with them and said, I'm a consultant, I'm over here. Derek's asked me if I'd come and join one of two of your meetings, and that's what I'm planning to do.
So it wasn't an in-depth interview, or you weren't trying to find something particular out about the dynamics of the team. It was much more relationship building, would you say?
Those one-on-one conversations were. I wanted them to feel comfortable that I was coming into their meeting and would be of help to them. You might say, did I expect to find a great team? And the answer was I didn't. There are few and far between. So teams have all sorts of challenges, and of course there are all sorts of ways of helping teams. But the first thing is to find out a bit more about where they are and what's happening. So I arranged a 90-minute meeting, and Derek Hudson, as the CEO, introduced me. This is Peter Garrett, he's over from the UK, been working with BG. Come and join in our meeting. Peter, what do you think we should do? So I suggested we have a check-in, and by check-in I explained to them it meant I was going to raise a question about them as a group and would like to hear from each one of them. Just what's your thoughts? There's not a right or wrong answer, just what's your thoughts? And Derek, do me a favour and go at the end rather than the beginning. I don't want people to think that they need to take their cue from your thoughts. And the question I asked them was, to what degree do you think of this executive group as a team? As an open question, not closed, open question. To what degree do you think of this executive group as a team? And give an example that explains what you mean. There were one or two who leapt in straight away.
Can I ask you about the question and where, when, and how did you design that question?
It's not a question I'd ever asked before, but it's a question that came because I could see, having expanded rapidly, they'd headhunted staff from other organizations, mainly oil and gas organizations. There were some from BP, there were some from Shell, there were some from all over the place. And they all had different ideas about the business, different ideas about meetings, different ideas about planning and so on. And it looked to me like quite a mixed bag. There were some who just arrived, some who were just about to leave. It didn't feel like a clear, settled, firm culture. I've learned through my dialogue work to start where people are rather than start with where they're not. If you want to be a great team, don't start with where you might be. Actually, how is it working now? Because it's working the way it is for a very good reason. And so that was the check-in. What do you think?
People often say they hear about a check-in, what it is. I don't know if I could do that. How would I do that at the beginning? I was just wondering what the response was, even before people answered. Were people up for it? Were they cautious? Were they?
They were a bit surprised because I sat them in a circle with no furniture in the middle of the room.
Mm.
So I wanted to demonstrate from the beginning that we were going to talk together and think together. And typically their meetings had been led by the agenda, led by decisions to be made. So they weren't used to an exploratory conversation. I don't think they really knew where I was going or how long it would take. So the first guy who leapt in from HR was very demonstrably in favor of the idea that they were a great team, and he'd done lots of team building, and they all should know that. But the second guy who came in operationally was like not much of a team. For example, this happened in our last meeting, and it's good enough. I can get my work done. And so the candidness with which people replied, I think, surprised others. And they paused and not only answered the check-in question, but also why they thought that way. And people have different ideas about teams. Some people want a team that's quite closed, where the leader gives the answer. Some would like to think about decisions and make decisions with more information and so on. So it was a bit of an inquiry about how we are, but also a bit of inquiry about what is a team anyway. And although they wouldn't know it, this was the beginning of the team building process.
So you could hear what they were saying and watch how they were participating. I guess what you see and hear is also important as well as the content.
I think I probably listened to them more carefully than they were used to being listened to. And as a result, they started to listen to each other a bit more carefully. And they got very involved in it. Nobody was saying, why are we doing this, or how long is this meeting going to be? They were actually very curious to understand and hear. We went round the room and everybody spoke and spoke thoughtfully, carefully. And then it came round eventually to the leader of the team, Derek. I think Derek was quite surprised by the lack of cohesive understanding about the team and how it worked and what it felt like. I think you'd see, actually, this is not in very good shape, is it?
That's interesting.
We probably all know it's not very good shape, but we kind of leave that alone and get on with performance. And
do you think he was more surprised than others? Do you think others knew and he didn't because he was the team leader?
maybe he's more committed in that it's on his head how the team performs. So he was very committed and a very fine guy, and well liked by people. But I think he was surprised by the fact it's not really where it needs to be for an organization growing at the speed that it is. And what I liked about it was when I then wrapped up, I fed back to everybody what I'd heard about their views, what I heard about their thoughts about teams, what I heard about the examples which had concerned them or delighted them. And I didn't judge them or criticize them as much as to say, well, this is quite an interesting starting point, isn't it? I think there's a kind of journey ahead which I'd be pleased to take with you. I think there's something quite valuable here which we could move on. And in the room, people were nodding, and nodding, by which I mean I wasn't telling them anything that their colleagues hadn't already told them. So it was just confirming that is what was said and that is where we are, and it's quite helpful. It led from there to my taking on the role of working with them as a team, and not only them as a team, but also their planning and scheduling a whole lot of activities. But why I wanted to start with this first point is to say so often teams which are not working people come in with a change plan. I think the better thing is to come in with where are we? If you ask me for directions, I have to say to you, well, where are you? And I don't know where you are. You know where you are. It's your business. And in talking together, not only do you know, but everybody knows.
So, Peter, what did you not do?
Well, I didn't judge them. And I think they knew I wasn't judging them. I was much more interested in what is the situation rather than what should it be. My curiosity is, why is it like it is? And there's actually some quite good reason for why it's like it is, and understanding those would be necessary before we could move to try and improve the situation. But other things I didn't do, and you might hear being done by others, one is to go around, privately interview everybody, and then come back with all the knowledge about everybody and say, well, this is what I've discovered about all of you and what you need to do. These are the three things you have to change in your team. I didn't do questionnaires and say, well, fill in the questionnaire, we'll keep it anonymous so nobody suffers, but this is really what's going on. I, in a way, wanted to begin the process with them thinking about where they are and opening a kind of hunger to move forward and to learn more. And that worked well. They were keen to know when we'd meet again. And I felt at the end of a 90-minute session, we'd got a collective understanding, which is what I mean by dialogue. Dia is through, logos is meaning, a common meaning through a group of people. They didn't have a common meaning yet about where they wanted to go, but they had a common meaning about where they are at the moment. And that's the kind of thing anybody with their own team could undertake. Actually, how do you think we're working as a team? Not what should we do to improve ourselves, but how do you think we are working as a team, and why do you think it's like it is? These are the kind of entry points for me in good change work.
It also, the other thing that stands out for me, that leads the team themselves with a real kind of ownership and a sense of responsibility for what's been said, because everything that's in the room is their stuff. It's not something that you'd brought in. It's owned by them. So that, I think, leads to a different level of commitment to take it forward.
I agree. It would be very arrogant of me to come, having never met them, and say, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Yet it's so typical that this is how you do it. And that's why you're paying me, to tell you how to do it. But as you say, this was collective ownership, a sense of already starting a process of wanting to move forward to become a team. The inquiry is critical, the transparency. I was very happy to tell them what I thought and what I saw, as they had done themselves. But the inquiry, the transparency, the common ownership, and the sense that we could move forward. And of course, I'm temporary as a consultant. I'll leave at some point and they'll carry on. And it's their business and they know how to run it. But I can help them to move forward.
And we'll hear more stories about where that work went with the team in the future.
But for the moment, to say this is an interesting beginning.
Yeah.
We have many more stories to tell about what professional dialogue is like at work, and we'll do that. And if any of you are leading teams, working in teams, trying to develop change, you might want to listen to more, to reach out to us or hear what we have to say. But there's a wealth of highly effective material available. So I'm Peter.
I'm Jane. Thank you for your time. We hope you'll join us again.
See you soon.